Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We are here for this webinar. Myself, Kelly Sendek, I am a marketing manager for Unique Venues, and I'm also the moderator for this webinar. I'm joined today with Scott Fish. He is the Chief Growth Officer for 32 Degrees Digital, and he does a lot of contract work for Unique Venues, actually, in terms of SEO and optimizing our site and strategies for AI search. So I'm happy to introduce him as our presenter for today's webinar, since it is all about AI. Just some housekeeping notes before we get started. This session is being recorded, and I'll be sending it out later this afternoon to everyone who registered for this webinar. Also, if you have any questions as we go along, go ahead and write them in the chat, and we will answer those for you. The topic for this webinar is Turn AI Search into Bookings with Smarter Venue Website Content. And with that, I will hand it over to Scott so he can kick off this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep, Scott Fish here. I'm located in Vancouver, Washington on the West Coast, and I've been working with Unique Venues in various capacities for about the last 15 years. So thank you, Kelly. I'm really excited to talk about this. I've been in digital marketing for really my whole career since 2001, and we've watched a lot of changes with Google's algorithm over the years and all the new social platforms coming in and figuring out how to optimize and advertise in those platforms. Obviously, AI is changing a lot of that, and it's pushed a lot of the things that maybe Google was a little afraid to do, where they put a search result at the top and don't require you to click through a website. Google stayed away from that for so long, and now with AI, we've jumped into that, and that's the expectation. So things are changing very quickly. I think one of the takeaways you might have from today is that a lot of the things you have been doing are things you should continue to be doing. It's just a little bit of a different lens or framing things a little bit in a different way. So we're going to go through a lot today. We're going to talk about how you can use AI search to turn into bookings. We're going to talk about organic content. We'll talk a little bit about social, talk about reviews. We'll talk about some advertising and ultimately some things that you can do to help your venue show up as much as you can in the new world of AI search. So historically, Google's enjoyed about a 80 to 75% market share with search. They continue to be used for researchers doing searches, but AI, I think for the younger generation, is definitely becoming the thing that they think about first. So certainly for 25 and under, as that market grows and gets a little bit older, they're going to think to use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude ahead of Google. And I don't think Google will go away, obviously. They're going to integrate AI into more of their search results and tools, but it just makes a little bit more of a complex place to advertise and market towards. So one of the big things that we're seeing with AI search is that we're kind of seeing this bookend effect of how people are using AI. A lot of times they're starting out with AI to get some ideas, and then they're going and doing research in other websites and other places, and then they might come back to AI and search for, like, tell me the best of these three options for these various reasons. So they're kind of starting and ending. And I think that's a comfort piece. I think eventually people are going to, and this may be eventually in the next 6 months, a year even, people will just use AI in their full search, especially since there's more integrations with other websites and other tools. So today we're going to look through a little bit of what we can do to show up in AI search and how that can help your venue get a little bit more visibility. You know, AI can clearly understand your venue for the most part. There's a lot of signals out there that are talking about how much square footage you have and what your capacity is, whether you allow catering and all these different things. But venue search is moving away from simple search results to these assisted recommendations. AI is saying, would you like me to compare these items once you've researched them? Would you like me to make a an RFP email to send to these 3 venues to ask these questions that you might want to ask for. So it's becoming a lot more assumptive in where we are seeing content and results in AI. It's not just keywords, it's not even just phrases, it's literally an entire paragraph that people are using to search. So we have to have content that answers those questions. And if we don't have content, somebody else will. And that's an area where right now we can be really aggressive with building out content that addresses all kinds of scenarios and event types and different room configurations, seasonality, time of year, that kind of thing. One thing to also note is that a lot of planners are using more natural language. They're not necessarily using traditional keywords. Obviously, in Google, ranking for a really important keyword has driven a lot of traffic over the years. But even now, you have AI assist at the top, showing up a search result in the search results, and then you might have a map listing and a couple paid ads. So even our #1 ranking, you're pretty far down on the page. So I have historically seen it take a little bit for websites to show up in Google's AI assist at the top, but we're really seeing, literally you can launch a piece of content and within a few days or a week even, you're starting to show up there. So it's happening much quicker than it used to. So there's a little bit of a new buyer journey. I touched on this a little bit, but how are people starting and ending their search and their journey to look for a venue? The old path was to just search, kind of click, browse around, compare. You probably had a lot of tabs open and a lot of bookmarks that you were doing. Now we have a little bit of more of a conversation and a flow to what's happening in search. So you could ask more of a complex question and you'll get a more complex answer. And so this buyer journey kind of is, I would say, multi-layers versus just something simple. So for example, you could search for find a venue in Portland for 50 executives. We need breakout rooms, dinner space, parking, and a more premium feel. A traditional venue page, even in Google, even your own website, might struggle to answer all of those points if you're missing a couple of those on your website. So a more detailed event use page for different events that people are using or searching for would answer some of these questions. So this is where I think we can get really in depth and kind of flat and build out lots of content that addresses lots of questions that people have. Ultimately, the clearest, most organized, and by organized, I mean crawlable content is going to show up in the large language model AI search results, for most websites. I would say if you're in a smaller market, this is probably a really good opportunity for you to go all in on content creation and make sure that you can own every single type of event that somebody's going to want to hold. And your competitors are going to be catching up over the next year because you'll have so much more content than them. So we need to answer their whole question and not just rank for a phrase. It's kind of a takeaway for this new buyer journey. So SEO still matters. It's just more of an expanded use of SEO now. AI search, I have a lot of people asking me this, like we were doing all these things for SEO. Does it still matter for AI? And there's a couple key things that do. You do have to have content that's crawlable and indexable and accessible by all of the crawlers for the different large language models. Some people have talked about disallowing, for instance, ChatGPT to crawl their site because they want to own that content. But ultimately, you're kind of removing yourself from the possibility of showing up in search results if you do that. So you need helpful original content rather than kind of generic, if you were to plan this type of event, these are the types of things we would do. Replace that with something that's actually an event planner planned this type of event with this number of people, this time of year. These are the nuances and unique things that we needed to build into that. We're not going after 1,000 searches a month with content for AI optimization. We're going after 50 or 20, but they're very specific ones, and they're very specific ones because they will have a higher conversion rate. And you don't need 1,000 visitors to come in that maybe only 5 convert. You need 20 visitors that come in that maybe 7 or 8 of those convert. It's a much higher conversion rate with AI search results. So having a good structure helps AI find the right information and the right cues. Website design, of course, is changing quickly over the last year or two even. There's a lot more images being used and a lot more big, bold text and pages. And so we have, an opportunity here to build in the right content and to build in the right images and assets that can help answer the questions that people are looking for. So how does AI actually understand a venue and a website? They're looking for some really important things. They're looking for entity data. So venue name, city, neighborhoods, event types. They're looking for actual facts, capacity, layout, amenities, any restrictions, pricing, etc. And then they're looking for proof. And historically, these first two, entities and facts, have always been there and they will continue to be there. But the problem with that is that there's a lot of other websites that have that information. Think about how many websites have your information about your event space, and a lot of it is similar or the same. Google knows that information. There's websites that are out there crawling other event venue websites and starting a new business essentially with that information. It's very accessible, but the proof point is missing. You're the only one that can own the actual stories, discussions around how your team helps people plan different events, testimonials. And this is where we see a lot of opportunity to show up in AI organic search, is to really own these stories, put up photos for specific configurations, put up reviews, put up the quote from the planner, put up maybe a couple bullet points about how you worked with the planner in a unique way to plan this event. Put all that together on one page, and that becomes a really strong proof point that AI is going to like. So they're looking at signals, but we need to describe our venue as good as possible, as well as possible. But we also need the proof points. And I think that's an area where historically we've done okay in from an SEO standpoint, but now AI really demands that we do a really good job bringing in those proof points. So what does AI actually want from your venue pages? They do want a lot of the things that you might think of. We need content to be rich enough for a planner's follow-up question without making them really hunt through the site. Think about the things that you might get in an email or over a phone call from a planner that they're curious about if you do this or if this could happen. A lot of those things are things that you should probably bring into your website, because if somebody's asking you a question in email, there's probably a few other people that have looked for that answer and maybe didn't reach out. So, capacity by different event styles or event types. If you make a list of all the events that somebody has had, maybe it's an exported list from your CRM. Take a list of all of that and say, okay, let's look at the top 10 event types that people held at our venue, and let's build out a page that specifically calls out all those event types. Same thing with amenities. You could probably group a lot of your amenities into kind of sections, getting here and staying here, accessibility, indoor, outdoor, audio, visual, and catering. A lot of times those are just kind of listed as bullet points on websites, and offering a little more detail into what all goes into that is a really good proof point for AI and showing up in AI search results. Also context. I think this is important, and we're seeing this actually more and more in search results. People are looking for venues that are near something. They want to be near downtown. They want to be near a certain airport. They want to know what the things that are walkable to do from a certain venue or from a certain area. They also want to know when's the best time to hold an outdoor event in your city. So we have weather and seasonality playing in there. So not a lot of websites talk about that, but if you build out specific content around events that people are holding, you can bring those pieces in, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but just mentioning some of that can be a clue and a trigger that will bring your website up in an AI search result over somebody else. So an AI-ready venue page formula. This is kind of something I wanted to leave everyone here with. This is in the middle of our presentation, but I think it's worth noting, building out some of the things that are on your landing page is in a more concise and organized way can be a good way to just kind of scale this out and do more than you're doing now. So, who is this event for? Defining this page, the certain event type, an audience, a size, and a style, and then why does it fit? So, why is your venue a good fit? Why is this specific space at your venue a good fit for certain types of planners and events? What are the logistics that they're going to need to worry about? What are some of the experience that your team can bring to help them, discover and understand what they can actually build out in terms of an event? And then answering some of the ambiguity for people, what happens next? Like, what is my RFP process look like? How soon can I tour an event? What is the availability of these events? I've seen actually some websites out there that have availability calendars that look like they actually show real availability times, but they really don't. And I think that's an attempt for people to kind of show that they're possibly available during these times and garner more requests for RFPs. So there's some kind of unique things that people are doing to try to answer some of these things, even right now, at kind of a national level. So before and now, kind of AI ready content. So there's a lot of generic venue content that's out there, to be honest. Like, take a step back, look at your website, take a real honest view, and take a look at whether this content is actually speaking to your customer, or if it's the type of content that everybody else has, or if it sounds like a lot of other websites that are talking about your venue. This is where we can really distinguish ourselves and create unique content that's going to show up in AI. So before, you might have talked about a beautiful, flexible space for an event, but now we're talking about this is an ideal 80 to 150 person executive retreat with 2 breakout rooms. So when we use the words flexible space or for any event or your event, you can usually interject or replace that with an actual event type and an actual space description. So look through your content. This is something literally you can do today. Look through your content and see if there's any kind of generic phrasing around your event space or an event that you're mentioning, and see if you can build in a little bit more unique content in there. It's going to increase your content length, but it will help AI understand a little bit more about your venue or your event space. This also is a good opportunity here to add in some of the proof points. So these could be links or actual floor plans, images, photos, or a planner testimonial on this. Think about it as an opportunity to really get more detailed and not be as broad as possible. Kind of go on a little tangent here. A lot of times I talk with people and I ask them who their best customer is. Who do they want to go after? And the who do we want to go after, who our best customer is, oftentimes isn't necessarily the one that's the most profitable, the easiest to work with, or the one that could fill a shoulder season for us. And so taking a step back and actually seeing who are our repeat customers, who do we like to work with, what types of events are easier for us, higher profit margin, maybe fill some of our calendar up. And of course, with a shoulder season concept, you have your busiest time of year, you're probably booked up 80, 90, 100% capacity. You have your slowest time of year. You can do all you want to impact that, but it may not move the needle. But you have that month or two on either side of your busy season where you can target specific events and specific people looking for event space and fill your books to that point. And that can increase 20, 25% of your revenue for the year just by adding in kind of those 2 shoulder season months on either side of your busiest season. That's a great opportunity to build in content like this to speak to those types of event planners throughout the year. Okay, so content that helps AI recommend you. We need more than a kind of general events page. I would say a lot of websites have built out an events page where they list out several different event uses. But we need those 3rd level pages to really start to come up now. We need specific pages around retreats, galas, conferences, weddings, holiday parties, and different types of events that people are going to have. We need some comparison pages even. How does your venue rate in terms of you versus a hotel ballroom, or you versus a campus or a convention center. These comparison questions are questions that people are already asking in AI, and AI is already doing the comparison. So if you have content that speaks to it, it's likely that your site is going to be referenced, and you'll even have a link in AI search results. So think about the things that AI asks next when you do a search. Would you like me to compare these? Would you like to know what's close by that an event that event attendees could do on an off day, for instance? Build out those content pieces. It's those are the things that are actually showing up in AI search results today. Original content wins. This is, really kind of going back to the core of SEO, but you having content that's unique to only your website is the way to get your website to show up. There are so many photos and descriptions of event venues out there that are competing essentially with each other. And so if you can be the purveyor of unique content and really offer some unique points, your website is going to show up ahead of other people because there is no other website that could show up when someone does a search for that. So you can also use AI to find some of the planner questions that people are going to ask. I've used this, take an event space, maybe it's your own or maybe it's a competitor, and ask AI, what would a planner need to know before booking this event, this venue? What questions should I ask in my RFP? Or what questions would delay an RFP? What concerns would a certain person planning an event need to know before planning their event with us? You could ask AI that for your competitors. You could also ask it for your own site, and then use that content as comparison pieces. Use that content as FAQ content. Maybe use that to build out some of your event type specific pages. If you can find out what questions AI is prompting or telling people to ask, and then bring out your own content to answer those, you're going to be miles ahead of your competitors because they're just simply not doing that. As I mentioned, looking at your competitors. So let's get into that a little bit more. So ask AI to do an analysis of your event venue website compared to your competitor and see what kind of gaps that you have compared to them. You might be surprised that they have more content or more pages buried deeper into their site that's not necessarily visible in the navigation. That's a strategy we use. We need a simple navigation, especially on mobile, but you could build out 30 pages about different events and put those on the site and have them be linked to from various pages, but they don't need to be part of the navigation. So on the surface, the site might look small by design, but you may find that there's a competitor that has a lot of pages that they're not only using for SEO, but they're also now showing up in AI, and they're using them as landing pages for different ads, Google ads or ChatGPT ads, for instance. So how do you build a kind of one-page brief with this? This is kind of a takeaway for today is, building a single AI-ready page that can be kind of created and then turned into a repeatable brief for somebody. So this is something that if you have a sales team or if you have other folks in your company that you can rely on to kind of do some storytelling about events, build out, a planner intent. Who are we targeting here? What are some of the facts that matter for that planner? What are some proof points that we have? What are some FAQs or questions they might be asking? And then what's the conversion path for them? Should they book a tour? Should they submit an RFP? And then look at some of these things around different facts and proof points and see what we can actually answer. If you do that, you can have a single page doc that has this built out for one event type or one planner type, and then just start replicating that out. You have the content, you just need to bring it forward and put it on your website. So how do we manage and measure whether our AI visibility is working? There are some tools like Ahrefs that actually tell you how often your website is showing up in AI search results. Google now includes AI search result driven content or visitors in analytics. You can actually see that now as a channel. You can also see that in referral data as well. And honestly, I've had people literally pick up the phone and call me and say, I called you because I asked who's the best marketing agency in town, and it said you, so I called you, right? So I'm hearing more and more of those stories. I'm hearing, especially from event venues, people asking who's the best event venue space in, Charlotte for this type of event in May. And ChatGPT recommends them, and somebody literally picks up the phone and calls them. So it's becoming much more common, I think, for ChatGPT and other tools to be referenced as the source. You may not necessarily see it in your website data in terms of like a direct booking or a direct RFP, because as I mentioned, the bookends of this, somebody may actually, use AI to find a list of 5 venues. You're included in that list. They go check out the website pages directly, and then they pick up the phone and call you. You wouldn't necessarily see that ChatGPT made that recommendation. So asking people, where did you find out about us? Or even asking them, what are some questions you asked AI in order to find us? I mean, those would be great things to ask when people actually come through your pipeline or funnel. Um, ChatGPT ads. I have just a little amount of time I want to talk about this. This is kind of new in the last few weeks. And if you sign up for ChatGPT ads, they're very basic and rudimentary at this point compared to Google Ads, although they're adding, it seems like weekly, many, many new elements to this. One thing to keep in mind with ChatGPT ads is currently the only people that see ChatGPT ads are people that are not paying for ChatGPT, so it's free users. So if you have a higher end client or you're going after corporate event planners, they likely have a paid version of ChatGPT. But on the social side, you might have some casual users of ChatGPT that are planning a birthday party. So if your event venue fits, I would say at this point more on the social side, ChatGPT ads can be a really good way to reach some of those people in a different way. Your ad space that you have is very limited. You can put up an image or an icon, and then there's a small headline and a small description. It's literally just a little line that shows up in search results. But it does give people a good way to find you. And if you have certain content that you've built out around certain event types, you could build out an ad campaign for each of those event types and run those as much as possible. And you're not going to necessarily see a huge volume for that, but you'll see, a good amount of clicks coming through. I think the click-through rate for some of the campaigns we've been running, has been like 0.5%, because there's just a lot of searches or impressions that you could show up for, and then somebody actually clicking through because they see that the ad is there and accept that they're going to click an ad. I think people are still getting a little bit used to it, but it's definitely growing in terms of acceptability and usage. I would say there's not a lot of smaller brands or smaller venues that are doing ChatGPT ads yet, so it could be something to try and do ahead of your competitors. And I'm sure it'll only be time until Claude runs ads. Google's obviously running ads on their website, but they may bring them into Gemini over time. They actually think about this. Google actually ran ads in Gmail and still does. And that was kind of a weird thing that people thought, but now you can still run cost per click ads through Gmail. So it's coming, it's growing, it's worth trying. Ultimately, running ChatGPT ads is one channel. If it's more cost effective from a cost per acquisition or cost per click to run ads in other places, as ahead of ChatGPT because ChatGPT is too expensive, then just be accepting of that and move into that other channel and maybe put ChatGPT on the back burner for a little bit. So some ways that you can use ChatGPT ads to promote your venue, promote your new event type pages that you're going to build after this webinar, and not just your home page. Use some of the context hints around event venue size, so the different fit pieces, so size, location, style, event type. That's small enough content that you could put into your ad. So if people see that, 50-person event space available in city name, right? That could be a really good clue for people to click into. It's going to help improve your click-through rate. And then be creative around helping people with some answers and not necessarily hype and promoting your brand. So, this could be a good place to promote a blog post that's, 10 things to ask an event planner, 7 things that event planners need to know about planning an event in this city, those would be great ads to add in and get kind of that contextual and creativity built into some of your ads. Landing pages for AI first traffic. So we've been talking about building out a lot of newer pages and a lot of new content here. But this is an area where you can have a conversation with somebody in a very unique way. A lot of times, I think we're afraid to make a little bit less formal content show up on our website, but building out specific AI first landing pages allows you to have a little bit more of a less formal conversation with people and just kind of be real about what your event space is like for certain events. Can you hold certain events? I mean, you can be, upfront. Like while we will, host weddings, we're not necessarily set up for weddings because of this, and this. However, if you're looking for a space that's, unique and small and, we require catering, then you may be a good fit for us. So I think bringing that into your own website and being honest with that through some of the kind of AI first landing pages is a really good idea. Things that I would stay away from or avoid, don't publish really thin AI generated content for every keyword variation that you want to go after. There's a lot of content that's being created through AI, and people are just throwing it up on their website, throwing it in social media, using it for email marketing. I think users are getting used to seeing AI generated content and almost discounting it in a lot of ways. And, there's little things like the EM dash, a double dash. There's entry sentences that AI uses commonly. There's summarization, phrases that are commonly used. So check to make sure that your AI generated content does not include those items, and try to add in some human edited content as much as possible if you're going to use AI generated content for some of these pages. Also don't hide behind some of your important logistics. A lot of venues will say, contact us to learn more about this, or even contact us for pricing. I think it's an opportunity to be more upfront, and I think the detailed, logistical questions that people might have, if you can put a little Q&A FAQ section on pages that answer those questions, you're going to be far ahead. And honestly, we're all tapped with our sales team and marketing team, and being able to catch the right RFPs and disqualify people because they read something on the site that it just means that your venue may not be a fit. I mean, that helps save everyone time and money. So you can use some opportunities of things that you might not normally talk about on some of your landing pages to qualify people or disqualify them. There's a lot of schema and other things that people have been talking about around building out the right content on the backside of page development. While that's important, it's kind of one of those things that's just inherent. It's there, and building out actual useful content that answers questions, I think is where I would spend my time and energy. If you're going to rebuild a new website, make sure you have all the schema built in. But in today's world, a lot of that is there, or it's already accessible, or the data is already known by ChatGPT and other platforms. So I have a 30-day action plan for you. You don't need to rebuild your entire website. You just need to focus on some of the pages that are already influencing your revenue and building planner confidence so that they will want to reach out to you. So first week, audit your first 5 venue or event type pages. Go through the things that we talked about around adding in, the right content, understanding who these pages are actually written for. And then in the week 2, once you have a better understanding of these things, start adding in the content that are missing facts, FAQs, photos, proof points, and calls to action. We recently did this with a large conference center, and they, kind of followed a similar format with this. They were able to go in and really update their pages to speak to the right event planner. And immediately they started ranking for some things that we didn't even really have on our radar as something that they should rank for before doing the audit. And I think, those were longer tail keywords or phrases, but they were super relevant to driving a good quality visitor. So you might uncover some opportunities that you just didn't think about by adding in some of these detail pieces. And then, weeks 3 and 4, build out some more event use pages, maybe build out 2 a week, and really build out content that's going to speak to an event planner that has a very unique event that they want to hold. You can test your AI visibility. One of the best ways I honestly have found is to do a search in Google, see if they're referencing your new kind of third level page. And that can be a really good first clue. And then you can also ask ChatGPT to analyze your pages and compare them to competitors and see where you're still missing gaps at the end of your audit and after you've added in some of your updates. So really simple stuff, honestly, like for AI search results. There's a lot of, I think, a lot of attention going into this now, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to making sure that we're talking to the right person, making sure we're understanding who we're trying to reach, and then building out the content on those pages to reach that person. So, and I'll leave you with this question here. What should AI say about your venue? Think about that. What is the thing that AI should say about your venue? What types of events do you want to be known for? What proof makes that more believable? Do you have proof on your site that says you are the best conference center in a certain city because you have testimonials, because you have the content that kind of proves that point? And then what page should earn the next booking inquiry? Think about this. It's not necessarily your homepage that's going to be the page that is the workhorse for your website. Some of these third level pages are actually the ones that are going to drive the traffic. So putting some time and energy into those is almost more important than putting the time and energy into your own homepage. Again, going back to the events, kind of general events page that a lot of venues have, that can be a second level page, but you still need those third level pages that can end up being the ones that someone lands on because of a specific search and ends up actually booking or submitting an RFP request. So that is all I have today for the webinar. We're going to open up if we have any questions. I'm happy to take those. Kelly, you may have some questions as you've been sitting here listening. Happy to go through those as well. I hope today has kind of empowered you to feel a little bit more better, a little bit better about what you can do for your own website around AI optimization and give you some ideas that you can take and implement over the next couple of weeks.
Thanks for your presentation, Scott. You put out a lot of great information, and I'm sure a lot of people on the call today got some good value from what you were presenting. We do have a question that just came in through the chat. Deanna says, oh, sorry, will a copy of the webinar be sent to attendees? Yes, that will be sent to everyone who registered. We'll stay on for another few minutes here if anyone has questions about the presentation. Something that I thought of, Scott, when you were talking about the ChatGPT ads, it was just yesterday I saw an advertisement for a webinar that OpenAI is actually holding tomorrow. I don't have the link for it, but I'm sure if you like try to Google OpenAI webinar, I'm sure it's able to be found out there. But I did see that they're hosting a webinar talking about ads and probably talking about how to set up the ads. So if anyone is interested in that, that's something that you can look into.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think they're hosting it tomorrow.
That a lot of OpenAI's hiring for their ads department, they've taken away a lot of kind of core historically important Google Ads people. So they are ramping up very fast, and they have the people that have the knowledge around building out a good ad experience and interface. As I mentioned, the ads are pretty rudimentary at this point. I mean, you can't even really target based on zip code. It's just cities and, certain things, and, disallowing certain cities is somewhat limited. And so they're building it out. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. I would imagine within 3 months, they're going to be, much stronger in terms of an ad platform, and people are going to be, knocking at the door to set up ads. I will also tell you, if you want a little hack to build out ChatGPT ads, there's a really good tool to build out a bulk amount of ChatGPT ads. It's called ChatGPT. Yeah. You could have ChatGPT create an outline for you with multiple ads and campaigns, and then literally if you ask ChatGPT to create a bulk upload file for you, you can literally have a CSV file ready to go. And then there is a bulk upload feature in ChatGPT where you can just load it all in. You might have to edit a few of your little ad copy pieces to make it, more of what you want, but that's a really literally 5-minute solution to getting into ChatGPT ads and trying it out.
Awesome. We do have a question in the chat. Shannon says, when you ask AI about venues in your area, what is considered a good ranking? Is it fourth or fifth good, or is there a way to make yourself first?
Yeah, good question. I think the just like Google, AI is looking for a lot of signals around what makes a good venue and what is relevant to the searcher. Links have been the commodity piece for Google. They've always looked at sites to see what links they have and who's talking about a certain venue in a certain way. If you have a limited amount of people that are talking about your venue, either in reviews or blog posts or social media, you're probably not going to show up ahead of others. But that is the way to build into a little bit higher ranking in AI, is to get a little bit more of those personal stories out there. You could put those on your own website. You could also have, just a blitz for Google reviews for people to leave more reviews. A good place also to do this is to work with your local tourism chamber or CVB and see if they can write a blog post about your venue and talk about how great your venue is for certain types of events. To answer your question about is fourth or fifth good, if you're in a crowded market, ChatGPT is going to give different search results for everybody. And so you may see yourself at fourth or fifth because of what it knows about you and what types of events it might assume that you're trying to plan. But other people are going to see different results based on what they're looking for and their kind of search history. So, um, I think if you're showing up fourth or fifth for a phrase that you think you should rank for, take a step back and say, why aren't we ranking for these? Ask ChatGPT, why did you bring me up number 4? Why did you bring this website up number 4, yourself ahead of or behind these other 3 websites? Tell me what areas we're lacking in terms of not necessarily your website content, but in terms of your venue capabilities to host events that these other venues seem to be able to host. Ask that question. And then if the answer is not one that you like because you think that you actually should be, in that mix, then there's a lacking of content problem that you can solve. Any other
Cool.
questions?
It looks like that might be all.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
just
you.
saying thanks.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, if anybody's interested in learning a little bit more about this, I will be speaking at UVAMC and attending in what is that, November, Kelly,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll be a great event. So feel free to sign up for that. That's going to be I would say, a really important event this year because there's so much changing with AI and technology and the way people are searching and discovery and sales process even is changing with this. So there's a lot of new things that you could probably learn from that. So sign up for that. Also, if anyone's interested in working with me, directly or through Unique Venues in some way with some consulting, I'm happy to, meet with you in that capacity as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for presenting today, Scott.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thanks everyone for attending.